Commissioner Jones was sending me text. She was having problems. I'm not sure if she's on.
I'm here, Mandy.
Gags is on.
Commissioner Brady?
I think everybody's on.
I'm good, but our sheriff was having problems getting on.
Michelle said she's on.
All right, we're good.
This is Commissioner Womack. I think I'm on.
You are on.
Okay.
We hear you.
We're glad you're here.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. I'd like to ask you all to mute your lines if you could. And if I could see the screen for the agenda for today, that would be great. Thank you. All right, welcome everyone to what I hope is our last subcommittee meeting before we send a report to the board. I want to open this meeting by really highlighting the concern out there for business owners and for people struggling financially, you know, over the COVID, I guess we're in. We really need to expedite our processes. So I really hope that we can do that today. I continue to see businesses closing for good every day now, and I think that we need to move quickly and efficiently to try to get this done so that we can vote this out in full board on June 11th for our next board meeting. So with that, I will open it up for Wayman to please read the notice regarding the electronic meeting.
Sure, Madam Chair. Pursuant to Governor Whitmer's Executive Order 2020-75, the Kent County Board of Commissioners COVID Relief Subcommittee, in order to protect the public health, will conduct its meeting via electronic communications. Any member of the public wishing to listen to the proceedings or provide public comment may do so by using the following internet connection or phone numbers and passcode, which is also listed on the screen on the agenda. Any disruptions of the meeting by using offensive language or offensive actions will cause one to be muted and removed from the meeting. You may provide public comment at email address publiccomment@kentcountymi.gov. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Wayman. All right, we are on to item 2, approval of the minutes from June 2. Do I have a motion and a second?
I move. Diane Jones.
Support by Brady.
Seconds.
Moved by Commissioner Jones, support by Commissioner Brady. Questions or comments on the minutes from Tuesday? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? All opposed? All right, minutes have passed. We are on to 3, and we are going to review subcommittee documents and correspondence.
Yeah, in your packet today, Madam Chair, is a memo that we received from Mike Gusweiler from the Sports Commission. Quite a lengthy document that's in there, but the first page really talks about the need of $15,000 to $20,000 to assure that they have safe practices in place as they begin to execute their summer activities at the Art Van Sports Complex State Games of Michigan. And so you will see that there. My thought would be a lot of this can be taken care of through the PPE bucket. We'll work with Mike and like we're working with the zoo and others to figure out how those would come forth through the buckets that you've assigned.
Okay, and that's the only one we received?
That's the only formal letter that I've received this past week from anyone.
Okay.
And I believe that the other documents are just simply the ones that we've updated. The expense reports in there, that's been updated. Jeff and his office have updated that. We also have the LUOGS document, which we're going to talk about right now, that's been updated by MB.
Okay, do you want to go through that?
Sure, we can return to that. We did reach out to the city of Grand Rapids. We had a conversation as well as a follow-up and an email and a text message from Mark Washington. And I exchanged that number has moved to 11.1. He confirmed that. He really appreciates the opportunity for the county to support us. We are going to work with the chamber to deal with the number of the opportunities that they had in their document. We also reached out to Goma Township. Jeff is now working with them to do another similar exercise. So their number may change. They asked for $500,000. We're not certain if that number is going to stay the same. I would say a similar thing might happen with their number. And we've also reached out to all of the municipalities to make sure that we did not miss them, that we did not have anyone that didn't get the email, didn't get the survey. And so we're pretty sure of our information as we get through this. That number 14 million, 14.2 could change based on diving in, digging in, and ascertaining what the needs really represent. And that's the exercise that the team will go through. But I think it fits within that 17 million or so that you have identified. And I think that at the end of the day, it may not be as large as that amount.
Can I ask, because I've asked this a couple of times. So I encountered another issue yesterday where one of my townships hadn't received the information for several weeks, and then finally we figured out it was the wrong email address, and so we did do that. But I just want to be really, really clear, crystal clear, that the zeros we're seeing where it says no comments, did they reply we don't have, did they reply no comment and 0, or is it where you say no survey submitted? Does that mean we haven't heard from? It's still very confusing who we've talked to that
MB,
says they have no expenses and who we haven't gotten a hold of.
MB, take that on, please.
Sure, I can speak to that. So if it says no comment, whoops, if you can go back to the other document, that means that they did not submit any. So there were questions that asked for dollar amounts, and there were questions that asked for just free text comments about what their greatest challenges are and what they're doing to mitigate the response. If they did not provide any comments in the comment section, then I wrote no comment. And where there's $0 amount, they submitted a survey, but they did not submit any financial dollars. Where it says in that last column, no survey submitted, that means we did not receive any submission from them at all. Now, as of
so we can see who those are.
Sure. As of 9:15 this morning, we did get one from Gaines Township.
Okay.
And late last night, we received one from the Village of Caledonia.
Okay.
Those still keep us within the initial threshold of what our allocations were. So I'm not.
So to be clear, if there's a 0 there, it means they've submitted back to us that they have 0 costs.
Correct.
Okay. And if there's nothing, it means we potentially have still not been able to connect with them.
Correct.
Okay. So commissioners, it looks like Tyrone, Vergennes, and the Village of Casnovia, you said Village of Caledonia did submit. So those areas, I don't know if you have, if anyone has personal contacts with those folks, but or whose district that is that Diane? Is that your district or is that Rogers?
So one is Diane's and one is, or two of them are Rogers. And so in addition to the initial survey, we did follow-up surveys. We also did phone calls to the numbers that are provided on their websites that we have, and additional email follow-up.
Okay. Great. It looks like Commissioner Breedy has a question.
Thank you, Chair. I briefly just wanted to confirm that, I reached out directly to Gaines and the Village of Caledonia, and Gaines had said they submitted a survey previously. They resubmitted it, as Mary Beth had just said, and then, the Village of Caledonia, they hadn't received the initial communication. So I'm glad that I reached out to them, but yeah, I would encourage reaching out to those other townships that have not responded.
Commissioner Talon?
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to say, since I've been raising the issue consistently, wanted to express my appreciation for the continued communication with the City of Grand Rapids on nailing that number down. I felt like that was really important, and it makes me feel much more comfortable about where we're at. So thank you very much for that work.
You're welcome, Jim.
Yeah, Wayman's done yeoman's work on that, and Jeff. Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. I will follow up with Virgins. My first contact with them early on was there wasn't anything to report, but that doesn't mean that didn't change. I can call the supervisor there. The other piece is I'm wondering if we're going to address the state and what they may or may not do and how that impacts us.
Yep. We've got 2 more commissioner questions, and then Wayman, can you address that one?
Sure.
Commissioner
You bet.
Skaggs?
Yeah, my question was the same as Commissioner Jones, but in addition, when we have under their greatest challenges loss of revenue sharing,
Yeah.
that's not even an expense that we can use for CARES funding, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
So how did that? I mean, how is it that we're hearing that from them? Given that I'm certain, right, that you looked at the form that you sent out, and it
Well,
talks
those are just
about all the
those are
potential
just
things that they could do, but
Those are just their comments,
Yes.
Commissioner.
it's just
Yep.
comments. It doesn't mean that's what they're submitting.
Yeah, correct.
okay. So so that's their venting more than
Yes.
a summary
Correct.
of their expenses.
Just
Okay.
commenting. They're
All right,
just
thank you.
commenting. Yep.
Commissioner Steck?
Thank you, Chair Bolter. Well, my question was the same as Commissioner Skaggs. I wasn't sure why we had loss of revenue and revenue sharing in the comment section, but that's been explained. Thank you.
Okay, so Wayman, do you want to discuss the state of Michigan's
Yeah. Yeah, we continue.
obligation?
Yes, we continue to follow up with the state of Michigan through our lobbyists, and we received an email from Mears too that indicated that they were not moving. The state treasury was not moving towards allocating any dollars to the municipalities at this point. There's legislation underway to allocate certain dollars for different PPE, for things for child care, for some of the school districts and so forth, but nothing specifically for municipalities. We did share that with the city of Grand Rapids. We provided them with the information that we had, the FAQ, and asked that they follow up. They are following up with the state of Michigan now. We do know that, but nothing has changed at this point in terms of a decision from the legislator or from the governor's office, the treasurer's office, related to bringing dollars from the state 3.5 billion to local municipalities, and they're going through that through their budget discussions as
Yeah.
we speak.
And
Nothing
just to be clear, the state legislature and the governor and getting consensus from both typically doesn't happen real quick. And since we just got that directive again on the 28th
Yeah.
for the state to do that, it doesn't mean that they're not going to. It just
That's
means
correct.
they just got notice. So I think probably the most prudent action for us to take would be, we have this, we'll hold on to it, we'll kind of, guard these funds for our municipalities and kind of give it another maybe week or 2 just to see what the state decides to do. Or we could, think about other options like kicking some of it out now for expenses they've had, or because these are estimates through December. So
Yeah.
I would suggest we just kind of hang
Right.
on to it, protect it for now, and then
Yeah.
once we know more, we can proceed.
Right. Very good point, Madam Chair. So these are projected figures plus current expenditure that the municipalities have had. So you're
Yeah.
right. We don't have to spend all of that. The city of Grand Rapids in particular has requested.
Commissioner Skaggs and then Commissioner Steck.
Okay, so what I'm hearing then is basically a advisory to the administrator that the expenses that have already occurred, that we can send out the reimbursement, maybe with the clawback, that if they get funding from the state, we'd get that back. But if I'm hearing from, at least from the chair, that we want to be expeditious to businesses. We want to be expeditious to our governing parties as well. That I think 2 or 3 weeks to sort it out at the state level, and then make our best decision possible at that point. That's where we're at.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's probably
Yep.
probably a good prudent action to take.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Commissioner Steck.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. Yeah, similar issue. I'm not sure that distributing it to them right now and clawing back would be a viable strategy, because once you pay it, it's probably no longer a qualified reimbursement to the state. So I don't think the bucket changes, but I would encourage that we hold on to those funds as long as we can reasonably do that to allow the state to make its allocation before we have to do that. And it's still being deferential and accommodating to the local entities. But if that money is coming, we want to save it for other needs that we know we have.
Okay. No, I don't see any hands up. Are there any other subcommittee documents we need to review, Wayman?
I believe that's it. I think we covered the questions related to the allocation structure earlier. I think that's in the folder now, but we went through that exercise a few minutes ago. I think that
Okay.
would be it for today, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I don't know if we did that with the entire committee here. Is that, or did,
You mean
am I
that
misunderstanding?
Steve's bucket list? You want to go back through again?
Well, I think that's what, isn't that what Wayman was just referring to?
Yeah, I was
that we-
referring to that. That's in the
Okay.
folder.
Sure. We can pull that up.
Could we? Yep.
I don't think the entire committee's heard that.
Yeah, that's true.
There we go. Okay.
So
Steve,
Steve-
you want to run through it real quick?
He's on.
Steve?
He's just reading. He's reading the caption right now.
They're terrible on mute. I apologize. There are about 3 or 4 changes. It'll take me a second to walk through, and they were based on things that were discussed at the last committee, and so I thought it might make some sense to consider these. If you look at under community investment, return to work PPE, that number has been proposed to increase by $1 million from $2 million to $3 million. How did we fund that? If you go down to care of vulnerable population, we had $2 million set aside for assistance to seniors. We have not seen any request in even close to that magnitude. So I took in, we allocated it based on other needs for childcare, thermometers, and other PPE, and set aside $1.2 million. That left $800,000 from the original $2 million to be moved up into the return to work PPE, and to come up with the other $200,000 if you go to the final line to be allocated. At the last meeting, we had $533,581 to be allocated. Move $200,000 up into the return to work PPE, reducing that to $333,000, thereby being able to fund $1 million of additional return to work PPE, and that is everything else remains the same.
And Steve, can I comment just briefly? We have had a resounding response to the news release about the PPE. There has been quite a few requests so far, totaling this morning as of 6:30 this morning, $408,198 worth of requests for PPE thus far. So we're tracking at a pretty good pace. They had until midnight tonight to get their request in, and then on Monday we'll evaluate and determine, who didn't get served the first round, and then the second round will occur, and then we'll know more at the end of the week. But it does look like there's going to be more requests for PPE based on what we've received thus far.
Looks like Commissioner Talon has a question.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, sorry, had to unmute. I apologize for not raising this earlier, but this kind of brought it to a head. I'm concerned about understanding what we mean when we say child care in that needs for child care line item. I think in the past, I've heard that some folks were thinking of this in terms of the child care fund that,
Yeah.
and I think perhaps this line is different than that, and I want to make sure that we talk about those two things differently. Childcare
Yeah.
that
What would you
parents
recommend,
use.
Commissioner? Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure which this is. The $1,200, is that childcare for parents who work or are doing other things? Or is it for children who have been removed by the court?
No, it's for the parents that
Okay.
it's for the first. And maybe we need to relabel that so that it's clear. So what would you recommend if we needed to relabel it?
I think that's fine. I just want to make sure that if we talk about childcare fund-related activities, that we identify it
Yeah.
as such. And
Okay.
I assume that might be in the not-for-profits program assistance. That would be eligible there.
Yes.
The West Michigan Partnership, for example.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any more questions? Commissioner Skaggs.
Thanks, Chair. Two questions. One, I'm trying to make heads or tails of the letter and the charts from the sheriff. And I'm confused. So I don't know if the sheriff is on the call. But I'm looking at things like the school resource officers and the community policing officers and the courthouse deputies. And from what I'm reading, she says these are contract services that don't come out of the general fund. But I thought we paid for school resource officers out of the general fund. I guess I'm just confused as to,
okay,
are we paying this? I'm confused if we're paying for these people twice is what I'm confused about.
You want to bring on Michelle or does Steve want to
Randy.
answer that?
Michelle, are you on today?
Sure.
I am. I'm on.
Okay.
Young?
Yeah, I can answer those questions. So Commissioner Skaggs, we pay 30% of school resource officers out of the county general fund. The balance is paid out of a special fund specifically for those contracts. So it's paid for by the schools. So when we took over a long term, those resources and used them for our law enforcement response, we were not meeting the conditions of that contract. So the 70% for those school resource officers that we would have billed to those schools cannot be billed to those schools. Additionally, the 30% that is generally paid for out of the county general fund, those resources were budgeted for other purposes than what they were used for. They were budgeted for school resource officer purposes. So under the condition of the CARES Act, those can be paid by COVID funds because they were used for something different than they were originally budgeted for. That same philosophy then follows on with community police officers. Again, they're budgeted. Those are 100% paid by the contracting entities. Again, they weren't completing those responsibilities. They were part of our primary law enforcement. Court is a little bit different because court is paid. It's a special fund for the sheriff's office. It is paid for by 17th Circuit and also 61st District and 63rd District. So it is kind of a bit of a movement between those other budgets, but for the sheriff's office, we're contracted for those services. Those individuals were not used to meet those services. Instead, they were brought back to our correctional facility to help meet our need in the correctional facility. So all those different entities that you see identified were used for a purpose different than what they were budgeted for.
Okay, so then this will entail an significant additional revenue for the sheriff's office then.
Well, not really for the sheriff's office, for the county. My budget remains the same. We don't have an influx of resources. It really changes who's paying for those resources. If we don't use COVID funds to cover school resource officers, community police officers, and court security, then that would be an increased cost to the sheriff's general fund budget because those things are not budgeted for in my budget. They're budgeted for in other people's budgets. And we didn't meet those contractual requirements. DPW is another example of that. Road Commission.
Do we want Steve to weigh in or legal or Steve?
Sure, Jeff or Steve, could you also add some context for that so that, because Steve, I believe you were the one that was working closely with Randy and Steve and the sheriff. Steve, could you comment on this?
I'll touch on it real quick. First of all, it's my understanding these officers were reassigned to deal with COVID-related activities
Right.
with officers, domestic abuse, all kinds of things. The sheriff can speak
Right.
better than me. The second thing is under COVID legislation and guidance, it's presumptive that the sheriff's department or other police departments are in fact doing COVID-related activities. So those two things make this an eligible expense.
I guess so. If some of this, so this money is going to the sheriff's department, but we already had some of this money, say 30% for a school resource officer. We'll just focus on them. That money was still paid out of the general fund. Then just help me understand where this money is. I mean, is there more money coming back to the general fund now that we're using CARES money to fill in those gaps?
Specifically, the sheriff's department is not getting additional resources as a result of the COVID grant, except for those direct purchases such as PPE on our behalf or some of the sanitation equipment that has been identified. We are not getting additional resources. I don't put extra man hours on. I don't have resources that are be given back to the sheriff's department because of this. Yes, there would be in some circumstances, in a very limited number of those circumstances, cost avoidance for the county general fund, and the 30% of the school resource officer is an example of that.
Right.
But it's, those are very limited because the vast majority of these contracts are 100% cost recovery. So none of that bill is being paid by our contracting entities during this time because they aren't receiving the contracted services.
So could I add something to this? The same that we are applying across the county in every department, administration, the courts, let's take, for example, juvenile detention as well as the health department. The federal guidelines allows for COVID-related expenses to be charged against the CARES Act for the fact that we're dealing with something that we've now not ever had to accomplish. And so the overtime that's being spent, the time that's being spent dealing with various calls, as Steve has pointed out, all those calls related to COVID are covered under the CARES Act. So that's what we're talking about. So at the end of the year, when we tally up everything, the health department, the sheriff's department, all those departments, those expenditures that are being geared towards COVID can be charged to that account. Now, at the end of the year, we suspect, based on what's happening, the county will not breach its budget. But if we have to pull dollars out of the general fund to take care of these activities, we would end up breaching our budget. And we don't want to be in that position. So we want to make sure that we charge these activities to the appropriate funding sources that the federal government's providing, so that we do end up with not having to lay off people, not having to reduce budgets for the normal operations that we do. So that's what's happening here with the sheriff's budget as well as with the health department's budget.
No, I get that. But if we have revenue come in at the same rate that was anticipated in the budget, we would see, we don't anticipate that happening. So, but if we did, we would see an actual, a drop in expenditures.
Correct.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. Thank you, Sheriff. I appreciate it.
You bet. Okay. Madam Chair, I think that we have I think, exhausted the, you know, the questions that you have. But if you have any others on this document, I think we'll make the adjustments to the report based on what we've heard. I think MB made those changes earlier, so we should be in a place to move this forward, and it will coincide with the actual report recommendation that you all will be approving today.
And Chair and Wayman, this is Jeff. I was on a call late this Tuesday or Wednesday this week. Oakland County did the exact same program that we're anticipating.
Yeah, I know.
For the,
yep.
for the not-for-profits for the 10 million. So I'm going to get a copy of their agreement when it's finalized.
Okay.
I want to say, and I know I've said it multiple times, but I'll say it again. We're going to have to audit all of these expenditures. So I just want to be clear that, again, this is not a carved in stone, you know, appropriation. It is this is our estimate. This is what we think we're going to need. We're going to get audited. We're going to go through and review it all. So again, these are our estimates.
Yeah, and these are estimates through the end of the year too. That's another thing I think people need to remember, is that these estimates are not from March till now, but they're through December 30th. That's what we project.
All right, looks like Commissioner Morgan has a question.
Just a comment on clarification. So fall, it's not going to go into a special revenue pot. This is reimbursement.
You're quiet, sir.
Hello?
I was.
Are you there?
Yes, we're here. Craig, Paul, you need to mute your phone.
Sorry, Roger, continue.
I was right in the middle of my comment now. I'm getting old, but so this isn't a windfall for any particular sheriff's department. It's not going to go into a pot. It's for reimbursement for expenses related to COVID, right?
That's correct.
All right, that's all I need to know. Thanks.
No other hands up on this. Any other comments or questions on this document we're looking at? I don't see anyone else. Okay, let's move on. Let's looks like we're on to item 5, the subcommittee report and recommendations.
So, Madam Chair, you know, we've been working on this. Started the process last meeting, actually last week, the weekend, and then based on the input that we received the Tuesday's meeting, we continue to pour through this. I want to thank Mary Beth Van Til, Jennifer Hedrick, and Sandra Goshen-Jones, and yourself for your help with this. You were quite involved with this last night, and Linda Howell as well. So we have a report in record time for your consideration as a subcommittee. So we have an overview here. It goes through quite a bit about the Upstart. The funds came in to us Friday, April 24th. The board chair decided that she would pull a subcommittee together and charge them with these points. Made sure that we had representatives from the executive committee plus members from both sides of the aisle, and you see your names listed there. There's a committee charter that's been identified. We wanted to get this work done out of here by June 1. We're keeping close to that timeline, and no later than July 20th. Recommend the guidelines for funding beyond the municipalities. We're in step, and then no later than December 14th. Recommend disbursement for any remaining funds. And you also talked to us about in October having a review, and we talk about that further in, but. Funds can be allocated through the December 30th and so forth. And we have been meeting according to Whitner's executive orders each time, made it available. We've been transparent. There have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 meetings that you have had related to COVID. And there's the criteria. We talk about the process, the internal expense review that you had us do. We just talked about the sheriff, the health department. We were asked to identify available funding through our offices, the Community Action Agency, the United Way, the Right Place, others that were involved with dealing with COVID. FEMA grants. We looked at what other federal funds are available. We continue to do that. And you see the amounts there that you've in fact approved through CARES Act funding through the CDBG, through the Community Action Agency as of the last 2 weeks. You had invitations for community presentations, lots of them. The Heart of West Michigan United Way and the community foundations, they presented to you. We had presentations by the Chambers of Commerce here in the county, including the Black Business Chamber and the Hispanic Chamber, as well as we heard from Tim Kelly from the Downtown Grand Rapids, Inc. Tax Increment Finance Authority. You heard from various, well, you heard from the United Way, and we did further follow up with them as well, with the Grand Rapids Community Foundation. We had information that we pulled from the right place. They provided a report to us. They presented to us. We had presentations from the African American community through the task force, the African American task force. They provided us a letter. The Latinx community, the Hispanic community presented, and you have just done a lot of listening, and we continue to receive letters from the community. Different organizations have responded, and all of that is available in your folders. It's also available on the website. You wanted us to make sure it was on Access Kent for people. We reached out to local units of governments, did survey. We talked about that today, and we worked with them. Those who provided intel, we're still following up with those folks as of now, and we are continuing to update our knowledge based on the latest information from the federal government. So preliminarily, we've got these buckets that we've identified. We have identified certain dollars for the PPE. You've approved some of those dollars. We also approved dollars for the homeless community, those that were lodged in hotels. That was done a couple of weeks ago now, or a week ago. We've worked out an arrangement, quick arrangement over the weekend with the chamber following your Thursday meeting, and they presented on Tuesday. And now we have a great partner to work with us on allocating dollars to the business community. We have also worked out an arrangement, it appears, with the Heart West Michigan United Way as being a vehicle for us to help with essential needs and nonprofits. They were already doing that through their fund and working with the Community Foundation, Steelcase Foundation, and Fry and others. So we're working out an arrangement so that they can assist us with brokering those funds for continuation of meeting the essential needs for the nonprofits. So that will be brought back to you similarly, eventually as an agreement that we will have them work with us on that. And then we have the recommendations that you talked about this morning, the disbursements of funds, all the buckets, and we've updated that based on the conversations had this morning. And you've given indication that you wanted to make sure that the board chair and I can continue to provide approvals on expenditures below the 250,000, and if it's 250,000 or more, but not less than 1 million, she and I and the board vice chair and the minority vice chair communicating to them along with our finance officer. You are allowing us to do that so that we don't sit and wait, but we deal with things of immediate need. And we can move on down. I mean, I think a lot of detail is listed in there. I don't want to keep going on, but the report's in your hands. We try to get it to you early. Madam Chair, if you want to take the mic, my voice is getting tired.
Yeah, how many more pages do we have? One more? Subcommittee approval process. Can you scroll back down a second? So
yes,
yeah,
Madam Chair.
if you want to go through.
Yeah, we've got a process which we talked about last Tuesday or this past Tuesday about the fact that the board will have this plan submitted to the Board of Commissioners at their June 11th meeting. All that you've talked about today will go before the board as a final report and recommendation for the process that we'll use to allocate these dollars. And reporting, you said last week or Tuesday, man, that's 2 days ago, that you would require us to report out on the dollars that are being spent, as well as a numerical expense report plus a narrative analysis, so that you will know what's happening with the dollars as we move through the rest of the year. We will also retain an auditing firm. I don't know if it's going to be Plant Moran or if it's going to be who's the other one? Steve, I can't think of the name, but they reached out to us. Yeah, I forget who we're going to use, but we're going to use an auditing firm familiar with county government that understands, federal dollars and so forth, who've been familiar with us. We're going to contract with them to do the auditing for us. And everything you've asked us to do, we're in motion to accomplish. Conclusion is that we have a mechanism to strategically provide, and we are currently providing dollars to the public for COVID-19. We are receiving many emails, phone messages from the community, business as well as nonprofits. Thank yous from all over, from the Hispanic community, from the Black community. We met with the Black Impact Collaborative yesterday, just to make sure you all know this is very fluid, and we're wrapping them into our contact tracing, our testing setup, and so forth. Everything that you all wanted us to do, we're working with them, tying them back in with the health department, tying them back in with the Grand Rapids Chamber of Commerce and so forth to make that happen. So I think from my standpoint, I've been with the county for 16 years. I have never seen a committee work this hard.
Read your texts. You guys.
I've never seen a committee work this hard, this fast to put a plan together in the history of the county. And $114.6 million is ready to be allocated, and some have already has. So I just applaud the work that you all have contributed to this process.
Okay, it looks like Commissioner Talon has a question. I just want to make a quick clarification while we're on this last page regarding monthly reports. I know no one will be super excited about it, but I would like us to do a monthly subcommittee meeting, even if it's just for a half an hour, to get together to review those reports. So we could do it, before a board meeting or after a board meeting or whatever is easiest. But I would like those to be monthly reports and meetings through December if needed. And then it looks like Commissioner Talon has a question.
Couple of comments and suggestions. First, thank you to the group that put this together. I think you did a fabulous job, took all of our input, and I really deeply appreciate the work on it. I have in the back of my mind that there was mention or discussion of communication from someone regarding the Asian American business community, and I want to make sure that that's noted in here somewhere, that
yes.
That's also a conversation that we've at least briefly had and need to continue to have, to make sure that it's that everyone in our community is included in this effort. So perhaps under the letters received from the community, we could
Yes.
add that in there.
And
simply
maybe
informational.
And a footnote that we met with Bingoy, I think it was this past Tuesday, myself and Jeff Dode, and then there's follow-up happening with Lori Latham. And so, yeah, we are tied to the hip with Bingoy and the Asian Pacific community and their new director.
Yep, thank you. The other suggestion is that, let's see, page 5, where we identify the preliminary initiatives. My sense was that those bullets, the first 3, where it says provides $2 million in PPE, I guess that's $3 million now, but I always thought we were saying up to.
Yeah.
And in the second one, up to 500,000, and the third one, up to 25 million.
Yeah.
think we should add
that's more
those
accurate.
words in there.
Yep, up to.
Thanks. Not a big deal, just small suggestions.
Okay, so we're gonna make that change.
And B, you
looks
caught that,
like-
I'm sure, right?
Yep, looks like Commissioner Steck has a question.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. I will join in certainly acknowledging Wayman and the entire staff that worked on this. I know that this committee has worked hard, but that's probably relatively little and pales in comparison to the work they've had to do behind the scenes. And so thank you for that incredible effort and ultimately producing this very well drafted and notable report for us to review and hopefully approve here today. One question I had, if you go to page 5, this is the subsequent discussion on the specific disbursement of funds. I believe the methodology on the disbursement of funds is tracking the authority granted in the emergency resolution that we adopted back in March, was it? Something like that.
Yes.
And so I'm assuming that in tracking that, as we get through the actual work of dispersing, which by the way is probably more work than everything we've done up to this point. So hang on to your hats, Wayne, because this is going to be even more work for you to do the administration.
We will have to meet every 2 days, so.
So, but not with us. Huh?
And with all the other meetings that we have, yeah.
Yeah. So at any rate, the actual distribution out of these buckets is intended to be processed through one of these 3 ways, either under 250 and an actual distribution to John Doe Company or what have you, or between 250 and $1 million through the second methodology. And the third is if there's any one allocation or one distribution in excess of $1 million, it'll go back to the usual process followed at the county, which is it'll go through the Finance Committee and then on to the board.
Right.
And I understand that, and it makes sense. But my point would be, I think that resolution had a sunset in it that automatically stopped if the state of emergencies are lifted. And so I'm wondering if we don't need to have a response to address what happens if the governor or the president lift these state of emergencies before you get to the end of the allocation process. And then we need to have an alternative plan B.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that too. I didn't know if legal has an opinion on that or.
Chair, that exact question is one reason why this level of detail was in the report. Because if this does get approved today and then eventually gets approved by the Board of Commissioners, this would reinforce that authority by that second approval. So that's why that level of detail is in the report.
But Linda, does that require, so if we do this report and we submit it through the report mechanism under the standing rules, wouldn't that require an affirmative subsequent resolution through the process?
We should, as it goes up to the board, because obviously this is a unique situation, but as this goes up to the board, I would envision and hope that we could get the board to grant an affirmative approval of the report, which would by its nature include its contents. That includes the distribution set forth on page 5.
Right, but after but that resolution is only good until the declaration of emergency is changed, correct?
Well, that's why the details in the report, Chair, because the approval of this report will last longer than the resolution. It basically replaces the resolution for the distribution of these particular funds. And if you'll remember, the resolution talked of purchases for the county as opposed to distributions out to third parties.
Yeah, again, I understand that. I'm just wondering if, because I think that we could the board could fully adopt this. They could ratify them. I forgot what all the options are, but there are a number of options when a report is submitted. I was thinking that if there's specific action items, though, within the report, it still would require the board to follow through with that by way of submitting it to the committee and then up to the board. So as long as it's clear that the report itself, if approved by the full board, constitutes an authorization to utilize this process, even if the state of emergencies are lifted.
Commissioner, I think the safest way to do it to make sure is when we
Put it in there.
present this to the board, we can cover it with a resolution that addresses those particular issues.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna provide a resolution for the June 11th meeting then.
We can have that drafted for you, Chair.
Okay,
Present it that way so that there is no question going forward.
okay. I don't, oh, Commissioner Skaggs. You're muted, I think.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's thank you time, so I thought I'd join in on the thank yous for all the hard work that everyone did on the staff level from Wayman on down, and then for the chair. Thank you, Mandy, for bringing this together, and for everyone that served to who put in a lot of time, read a lot of documents. I think I went through 2 or 3 ring binders. So I appreciate all the work that everyone did. You know, just a few parting remarks then, I guess. One, you know, obviously this subcommittee I don't think was ever meant to look beyond the buckets that we've gotten on the one sheet, and that the specifics will be left up to the administration. And I'm glad to hear what Wayman just mentioned about working with a variety of organizations on testing and tracing and getting out the message. I know that we have line items about community engagement. Just want to, you know, we did hear from a lot of organizations, some of them who we're going to contract with, you know, directly, that has been resolutions of this subcommittee, and some that I hope that the administration takes advantage of. There's a lot of groups out there with a lot of cultural competency, and there are communities that have been, you know, greatly impacted all up and down the line, and I think I encourage you to use the talent that we have out there in the community to make sure that that the people in the greatest need are getting some of these resources. 2, again, recommendation, you know, obviously things are happening very quickly. I assume that local governments, as they begin to learn things, may be submitting receipts for things that weren't involved in their initial estimation. I hope that we work with them on that. For a variety of things that they may learn about as we go on. I think we're all learning as we go on. So I hope that we're sympathetic to our partners in the cities and townships as we do that. You know, we've got an election coming up. That's certainly something to think about. And we have all sorts of unforeseen expenses that may be coming with or without a second spike. So with that, I guess my last comment would be, when we do vote on this, I know there was a little bit of last minute moving around of hundreds of thousands of dollars. If we can make sure that we know exactly what we're voting for, because we have a lot of documents, by putting it up on the screen, that would be really helpful. So thanks, everyone.
Okay, which item do you want on the screen, Commissioner Skaggs?
I mean, I think the CARES Act Title V chart of money that we've been working off the whole time, the sort of one sheet.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
With whatever edits were made.
Yep.
They're on, right? This is up to date, correct?
Yes.
I think we need to, we're including this sheet in the report that goes on the 11th, correct?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
This is Exhibit 1 to the report, I believe. Am I right?
Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay, so this is the most up-to-date form that we have.
Yes.
Great. Okay, thank you.
It looks like Commissioner Jones had a comment.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. I also want to echo everyone's thanks across the board. This was a significant lift, and we are incredibly fortunate to have this lift to make compared to many other counties that didn't have the population to have this come their way. So for that, I am really, really grateful. I also wanted to add as a note, because we discussed it quite a bit at our last meeting, the follow-up for what will go to finance, and just to be clear that it'll be all single purchases of $1 million and above. And I just wanted to make sure that that was a piece that I personally was a little gray on before and not as clear, but now it's can see through it like a glass of water. So I think that is a great addition and plan in this mix. And I look forward to our next steps and to continuing on. And like I said, what a great piece of challenge for us to have these funds to work with.
Any other questions or comments? Don't see any other hands up. I would like to suggest that we have Commissioner Womack, do you have a question?
Yes, now I can hear me.
Yeah.
You're echoing.
Echoing. This is great. I just want to say thank you, everybody. I've enjoyed being on the committee. I'm going to keep it short because I got feedback.
Okay.
And I enjoy everybody's hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Womack. Any other questions or comments? I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the report.
This is Steck. I move to approve the report.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Steck, support by Commissioner Skaggs. We've had questions or comments, so I'll just go through the roll. I am in favor. Commissioner Steck.
Yes, I support.
Commissioner Jones.
Yes, I support.
Commissioner Breivy.
Yes, I support.
Commissioner Talon.
Yes, I support.
Commissioner Morgan.
Yes.
Commissioner Skaggs.
Yes.
Commissioner Womack.
Yes.
All right. Ooh, that sounded much better. All right. So we have unanimous consent for the report. It passes. It will move on to our full board on June 11th. And with that, we are on to item 6, miscellaneous. Does anyone have miscellaneous today? Holy moly, are we going to get done?
Yes.
In a little under 2 hours?
I raised my hand, Commissioner Bolter.
Oh, Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Commissioner Bolter. I just wanted to touch base on the time frame to get this to our fellow board members. We know it's a lot of reading. We knew it was a lot of time for us. What are your thoughts on that, Wayman?
Well, we're going to wrap up the edits as we were making edits as we were going through today. There are a lot of attachments or appendices that we need to provide. Just shape it up. MB and team, you tell me. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Give me some estimation of how soon this can be ready to go. And then Pam's got to push it out in the agenda for you all, like we normally do each week for the board meeting. So.
When do you need to get it out to the board? By Friday? Is that the timeline?
I mean, it has been available on the portal too, correct? So it's not like.
Right, that's correct, Madam Chair.
But yeah, I guess as soon as we can send it.
So I'm thinking tomorrow afternoon, it'll be going out complete to the board with the resolution to support the recommendation to accept the report.
Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Steck.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. Just finishing up, I want to again acknowledge staff, but also thank you for your leadership through the course of this. This has been an incredible challenge and keeping us on track. When I look around the screen as to who's participating on this committee, for you to keep that group on track and on time was an incredible challenge. You did a great job. Also acknowledging all of my fellow members who sat on this special committee for purposes of doing this work. I will confess that when we first put it together, I thought we will talk ourselves to death and probably argue until the until the end of the spend period. But everyone, I think, exercised incredible commitment, professionalism, and skill in debating this, deliberating this. And I'm really pleased and excited with the product that we've come out with. So thank you all.
Great. All right, does anyone else have any miscellaneous? I do have a question to pose. Do you want to plan on, I think in the summer I don't have this board schedule, but I think we only meet once for July and August as a full board. Is that correct, Pam?
Yeah, we have a board meeting on July 23 and another board meeting on August 27.
Okay,
Correct.
so do we want to just plan on a subcommittee after board, immediately following board? I would like to have the chamber start like a update for July. I'd like to get a PPE update before that. But what do people think about that? Good?
Are we,
Good?
are we,
Fine
Chair,
initially.
are we still in Zoom mode for those purposes, or we don't know yet?
I don't know. I don't know. I think we're going to have a contingency for the next board, not the 11th, but the following one. I know finance is on the 16th, and that may be past the governor's emergency declaration, which I believe the Open Meetings Act EO is under that. So we'll have to see what she does. Linda, do you have any comments?
The current EO on the Open Meetings Act expires on June 30.
June
So
30. Okay.
When she changes it, it's June 30 is our end.
Okay. Okay. So we could probably plan on, I think finance is maybe the only, I don't know if you're going to have legislation. But we could continue to have electronic meetings until through the end of June, and then start to plan for in-person meetings after that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we will be, just so it's clear, I think that we are going to be canceling the LHR for next week, again, to comply with the recommendations of the governor. But then also we'll be meeting on the 23rd, because we do have some appointments we need to process.
Okay. Okay, if there are no other miscellaneous, I just have a couple. I realize this was an enormous time commitment for all of you, and I just want to really acknowledge the board members. I didn't anticipate we would have marathon meetings, but I am glad that you all hung in and you were willing to participate and willing to get this going and willing to work with each other. I think we did a pretty good job in a very intense political environment and time that we're in. So again, that's what makes us unique. That's what makes Kent County the best county to live in. So I really appreciate all of your work and your willingness to collaborate. I want to acknowledge everyone in the community who reached out to us, shared their what they're experiencing in the community, what they're hearing, seeing, that really helped guide our decisions. So I really want to thank everyone who participated in that as well. And then I do have, Wayman, believe it or not, I do have guilt for all the work that everyone has had to put in, the staff, just an incredible amount of work. I don't know that Wayman's had a day off and going on probably 3 months. I asked him to turn his phone off this Friday. Probably won't happen, but just hope that you all can get some time to recharge the battery this weekend, and just want to really acknowledge the staff and pulled together. I know we were short-staffed and it was a crazy time to be short-staffed. So thank you for that as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And after that, I want to just again acknowledge to our subcommittee members, please talk to our other board members if they have questions or comments so that we can get this approved on the 11th through full board, and we can start making those commitments out to the community. That would be great. I will continue to do so as well. And I just want us to take a second and acknowledge how important this is. This is $115 million going out to our community to help relieve what's been a terrible time in our history. I think my kids are going to look back and talk about not going to school for 3 months, and it's just crazy time. And this is pretty awesome that we're able to do this for the community. So thank you for that. And with that, I'll open it up to public comment. Pam, did we have any emails today?
There are no emails in the inbox.
I don't see anything in chat.
And no hands are raised.
Well, it looks like Bing Goy. Bing, are you there?
Yes, I am, Chair.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm not a county commissioner, but I do want to echo what the county commissioners have said about their appreciation for the hard work that this county commission has done for small businesses. And I want to express my thanks to Wayman Britt and Jeff Dodd, as well as the two of them met with myself and Luke Nguyen Abrahams from our executive director from the Asia Pacific American Chamber of Commerce, headquartered in Farmington Hills. I am currently their chair of their board, and unfortunately, we did not have the time to, or we were not aware of in time to participate and possibly participate in the first round of the PPE relief funds because I just sent out those notices in the last day or so. But hopefully, we can participate in the second round of that as well. Also, in terms of the $25 million business, funding available, I'm hoping that the committee that may be looking at the applications will also include some Asian business leaders representation on that committee. I think we did that with the previous other committees that under the Right Place,
and that's the plan.
The PSGR and the Chamber and the City of Grand Rapids. I think, I'm not quite sure of all the organizations that was involved, but I know it was MEDC funding.
And that is the plan, Bing.
Okay, great. I think that would be helpful because unfortunately, the Asian business community and Asian community as a whole have historically stayed very quiet and on the sidelines. And I think I'm encouraging them to become more involved, not only to receive funding, but I think they can also contribute significant awareness and knowledge of how they do business, and maybe some of their ideas could help other communities be more successful in their business operations as well. I think we as an Asian community are recognizing that we have a responsibility to also contribute to the enrichment and the quality of life for all residents within Kent County. So the one question I have, Chairperson Wolters, is under the not-for-profits program assistance that's allocated for $10 million, is something like that available to, like our organization? We're trying to establish a regional office of the Asian Pacific American Chamber of Commerce in Grand Rapids. We have a large Asian business community here that I think could benefit from such a presence. And with COVID, all those efforts stopped. And I know now we're also in a very challenging financial situation.
Yeah, we're typically we don't do Q&A on public comment, Bing, but we definitely will have Wayman can circle back with you on that. And we kind of left that, we do acknowledge that nonprofits are going to need assistance. And I know we have a form, and it's an incredibly long form of all the things that United Way have done already for nonprofits. I think they're looking to continue that. So I would encourage you to circle back with them and with Wayman, and we can tease that out a little bit. But we appreciate your comments today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment today? All right, I see none. We are adjourned. We will not be having a June 9th meeting.
Hey.
So you can remove that tentative.
I will.
We are adjourned, and plan on me probably calling everyone for questions or finalization of things before the 11th. But thank you, everyone. Job well done. We are officially adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Back at you.
Thank you, Chair.